your style is very iconic. Like I'm sure you get this question all the time, but then yours is like dark, a little bit of gothic kind of thing, yet mixture of cute and like adorable part of it. How did you which this become your iconic style? And then a lot of people influenced by this, and a lot of young students and all are trying to like imitate or even like starting to copy that, and kind of I think you are kind of like trendsetter for this style. How did you actually come up with this
Well,
this
I didn't
style?
really come up with it. It's just more how I feel, I mean, I think like for me, I never feel one thing. I always feel if there's something funny, it's also sad. And if it's happy, it's dark. If it's light, it's dark. And for me, life is a mixture of all of those elements together. So I never see something as just dark. For me, there's always some humor in it or something in it, because that's every day, I feel a mixture of all those things at once. So for me, it's just a very simple how I feel about life. So it's not something I thought about or even came up with. It's just basically how I feel.
Sorry, I think this might overlap a little bit with the other
Okay.
questions down already, but then
Take
is there
your time.
any a bit similar, but then any work or characters that you are most proud of, or your
Yeah.
favorite characters, or
Yeah.
anything from the past movies or anything?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I said earlier, I mean, I feel like everything I do, even if it's not based on something I did, like Batman or Alice in Wonderland, I feel connected to the characters. I mean, for me to do it, I need some connection. And I mean, the most pure ones are things like Edward Scissorhands or maybe Jack Skellington or but I mean, even Wednesday, the character I just for the Netflix thing, I identify with. So for me, I have to have just a strong identification. I mean, even if it's a female character like Catwoman or whatever, I feel close to them. So, like I said, for me, it's like they're like your children in a way. You feel kind of close, connected to all of them in a strange way.
Yeah. So, and then most of those characters are actually more like a creature than
Yeah, like me.
human beings.
Yeah,
But then is
fine.
there like do you like intentionally come up with like unhuman kind of character, or it's like somehow how did you come up with this? And then is there like an intentional decision of your part, or do you have an imagination? Do you imagine each of those characters actually have people like a sorry,
Well,
example
I
like
get it.
Mickey Mouse is not a mouse, but it's like more like a human kind of thing. Do you
No,
have?
yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. I mean, here's the thing, right? Well, I grew up watching monster movies, and monsters are monsters, right? But in the monster movies, they're more human than the human beings. They show more human traits. They show more vulnerability. They show more passion. They show more uh, whatever. But so for me, monsters were always more human than the human beings. So I had a very sort of juxtaposition viewpoint about what's normal and what's not, and what's a monster and what's human, and what's normal and not normal. I mean, I almost have the opposite opinion about that sort of thing.
Inside the exhibition, we saw this one sort of like storybook that you did when you were high school or something, that you wrote a letter to Walt Disney Company, that is it possible, you approached them to produce this, and then you got a compliment letter for like it's a good quality for your age and then all that, but then like that didn't really happen.
Sorry.
But after a few years you managed to, of course, get the thing. So we would like to know, first question is like, you aim for it since you were young and you
Yeah.
managed to work with that. So it's not really, it doesn't have to be about Disney or anything, but then
Yeah.
work so hard to it and then you manage to achieve it and you gain success from it. So it can relate to anybody who's
Yeah.
not in the film industry, or it can be any career.
Yeah. No,
Someone to determine, how did you feel when you managed to, realize
well,
that, and then
that,
how.
no, you're right. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, it looks like, I've, been successful, whatever, like, but the time, like, for instance, I wrote Nightmare Before Christmas, right? And I went to every publisher in New York and every studio, blah, 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 blah. No, 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 no. Turned it down, turned it down, turned it down. But I kept persisting. And after 10, maybe even longer than 10 years, it finally happened. So sometimes it takes time, sometimes, if you get rejected, I got rejected all the time for many, many years, and I still kept at it. And so sometimes, when you keep at it, sometimes things just take time. And I was very lucky to have that persistence to kind of not get too discouraged, because it is quite discouraging when everybody, you go to every single publisher in New York and they say no, and I mean, it does make an impact on you. So I don't know. I feel quite lucky that I had a certain kind of resilience to not let it deter me from wanting to do what I like to do.
This will definitely relate not only people from the, who want to be a movie director or art scene, it can relate to any other people.
I still get rejected, believe it or not. I mean, honestly, ask anybody. Everybody thinks I got it so easy, but boy, I've been, I actually at one point I kept once I had a certain amount of success, I thought, well, it should be easier for me now, right? But it never got easier. I mean, I still, up until this day, I get rejected by every day. There's something I get rejected on, several issues, right? So it happens to all of us, no matter who you are.
Since we are talking about achieving your goal and everything, but of course, not only about rejection, but while you're working or, like trying to do something, there could be, maybe not be rejection, but it could be some personal problem or something that you are, facing. Suddenly you got a personal problem or you have a bad day or whatever, and then you may not want to work on it, but you still have to go on, or how do you actually, of course, and then you must be, I know it wasn't easy for you, but you must be good at it because you managed to achieve so much who most people couldn't achieve. So is there any advice for everybody that, trying to achieve, like when they have a bad time or when they don't feel like or something, how do you go on with this?
Well, I think that the key element with that is you have to do something, whatever it is that you feel passionately about, in your heart. Okay. So that you can weather the bad days, the depression, the rejection, the whatever problems on a set or whatever. The only thing that comes back down to is what you're doing, and you have to feel strongly, like ultra strongly about it. It's not just intellectually, you have to feel it, and it can sometimes be painful, but it's important when you're communicating with other people, when you're trying to manage lots of people, lots of time, some money. It's important that you keep that focus of what you're doing, and I think that's the anchor, and that's the sort of root of the whole thing to kind of keep you going. Is you have to just be passionate in your heart about it.
I was going to ask about to gain the success or achieving the goal. Is it talent, or is it determination, or networking, or luck, or something?
Well, I would say networking is not my strong point. So not networking, and not schmoozing and socializing is not my strong point. But the other things are important. Yes. And luck is also a bit involved. There's a bit of luck always involved.
We would like to know about your approach to bring your illustration or animated characters into live action movies. Could you explain the difference in the creative process and challenges you face when you're transforming from two-dimensional to three-dimensional characters, and how do you navigate these differences?
It's a good question, because that's where it comes in. Like, my drawings are very simple, right? So if it's an animation, it's easier to sort of relate it to my drawings. When it comes to live action, it's not making it literal. It's about keeping the spirit of what the drawing is. So in the drawing, there's something for me that's just a feeling. Now, obviously, you don't put that drawing and turn it into an actor. It has to have a feeling. And so that's the interesting, and that's sort of the creative part of taking a drawing and putting into live action. You're dealing with actor, you're dealing with costume, you're dealing with something where you're dealing with different people to try to take a simplistic drawing and fleshing it out into reality. And that's always exciting. I mean, sometimes it's better to do it in animation, and then sometimes it's more exciting to let it see what happens in live action. And that, I find that process quite exciting, and unknown. Each thing is different, how you translate the drawing into a person. Each one has its own flavor to it. But it's exciting, and because you can't really take a drawing and go like, okay, make this real. You kind of have to find it, and that's the creative process.
And then related to your process of the work, your characters are, of course, known as a special character or unknown species, you know that. So how do you come up with it? Do you actually get the inspiration from the character of the people or anything? How do you come up with all these special characters usually?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you try to do is, because life is so busy and everything's so much. Sometimes for me, the most important time is when you're not doing anything. You're looking out the window, or you're looking at people walking on the street, or sitting in a cafe, or or looking at my dog here. Sometimes I get inspiration. I mean, it's all kind of, it's not literal. You kind of take it, you see something and you apply it to something else. There's just something about the mixture of things all together to create something. And that, again, that's the beauty and the unknown factor in creating something in art. It's like you have a thought, you have different feelings, and they kind of come together into one thing that is an exciting experiment. It's all an experiment.
You mentioned that the most important thing for the key to the success is more to like determination and then passion and everything. But then for you to achieve your success, was it a determination, even though you got rejected so many times by so many people? Is it the determination and passion, or did you believe in yourself? I know I'm gonna make it someday.
Or is it revenge? I don't know. I mean,
okay, but
I wasn't popular in school. Nobody liked me, so I'm going to get my revenge on everybody and become successful. So there you go.
I see. Okay.